Well, the debt ceiling debate is heating up in Washington this morning. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy unveiled the Republican plan to raise the debt ceiling by $1.5 trillion, but it's tied to massive federal spending cuts. CBS News congressional correspondent Nikole Killion is following all of this from Capitol Hill and joins us now. So for the longest time, the Biden administration was sort of saying, give us a plan. Well, what's your plan? Let's see specifics. So now we got some details here. President Biden said the GOP is threatening to default on the national debt unless, quote, I agree to all these, in his words, wacko notions they have. Is the plan seeing much support from House Republicans?
Well, the only way it's going to get through the House is with the support of the entire Republican conference, save 4 votes. I mean, that's really all that Kevin McCarthy can stand to lose because Democrats are very unlikely to support this plan. Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who represents the Democratic minority, called it extreme and said that, Democrats really aren't going to deal with Republicans taking the economy hostage. I'm kind of paraphrasing his statement, but, that's kind of how Democrats view this plan. But Republicans have been having a lot of conversations about this. And while, maybe everybody may not be on board yet, the speaker is certainly kind of working rank and file members. He had a number of meetings with various factions of his party yesterday. Those conversations, I'm told, are expected to continue today amongst the party because they really will need buy-in from everyone. And keep in mind, they already have some of that. We've seen some more conservative factions of the party rally, for instance, around repealing some components of the Inflation Reduction Act, which is part of this. We have seen some other members really call for spending to be reined in, and that is certainly a huge component of this. So the speaker told me yesterday that he is confident not only that he will move forward with a full vote next week, but that he will have all the votes to get this passed.
So you spoke to Speaker McCarthy yesterday about the future of the Inflation Reduction Act with this spending. I want to play some of that sound.
What about repealing the Inflation Reduction Act? Is that going to be part of this?
Yes,
are you repealing some components? Because you didn't mention that on the floor.
Yes, I did. If you read through it, the green tax credits, and what Goldman Sachs says it's going to cost 3 times that amount. Senator Manchin, I just saw him, who voted for that, thinks it needs to be capped.
So it was a little hard for me to make out because there's a lot of noise going on there. Everyone's walking and talking. But does he think that he can get enough support in the Democratic-controlled Senate to pass this spending bill as is?
Well, considering that House Democrats are unlikely to support it, it's pretty much a non-starter in the Senate. And, Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has made clear that, the way he sees this deal getting done is for Republicans to work with Democrats on a clean debt limit increase, and especially something that rolls back a bill that they signed into law last year is unlikely to get buy-in, certainly from Senate Democrats. And that's why also the White House has been very vocal in its opposition as well. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre is saying in a statement early this morning, Speaker McCarthy sided with the extreme MAGA wing of his conference and released a blueprint to devastate hardworking American families. MAGA House Republicans are holding the American economy hostage in order to take a hatchet to programs Americans rely on every day to make ends meet. So again, both sides are kind of going to stay in their corners, and that really begs the question that if this Republican debt limit plan passes, what is the game plan? Because that kind of puts the ball in Democrats' court. And if Republicans are refusing to do a clean debt limit increase as they like, where does that leave both sides?
Right. And so, yesterday on Red and Blue, the director of the U.S. Office of Management and Budget spoke about the plan. So this is kind of the department that really does crunch the numbers and determines whether or not it makes any sense. And this is what he said.
But frankly, what we've seen so far, we kind of know what the deal is. He has outlined this. It would have draconian cuts for middle-class families and working families in this country, 22% cuts on things like Meals on Wheels, which are meals for seniors, veterans health care, education programs. Those things are absolutely targeted at those who cannot sustain those cuts. So we are happy to talk to the Speaker about spending priorities and who you're for in this country, but we absolutely think that is the wrong way to go to grow this economy.
So I said he, I meant she. But listen, I got to tell you, I'm getting a little bit of sort of debt ceiling exhaustion. I feel like we come to this point on a regular basis. It doesn't seem like either side is actually sort of putting forth, it is looking for consensus or looking for common ground, at least not with the opening salvos, if you will. Are there any plans for the president and the speaker to sit down and talk? Because as you point out, right now, looks like they're in their own corners and the corners are far apart.
Yeah, well, I think that's certainly the hope on the part of the speaker. That is why he's putting forth this proposal, and Republicans writ large have said, well, hey, this is a starting point. And as you know, with any negotiations, you kind of have to start somewhere, right? And it may not be where the other side wants it, but you kind of have to trade ideas back and forth to ultimately win some type of consensus. And so, again, I think, the strategy of the speaker is, hey, we're going to get this plan passed. And that does put the ball back in Democrats' court, in the White House's court, as to whether or not they're going to sit down with the speaker. He certainly has been trolling the president, I would say, for several weeks now, as we saw the president speak yesterday in Maryland. The speaker here took to the floor saying that it's been 77 days since President Biden has sat down with him. And I'm sure you will hear the speaker continue to say things like that to try to put pressure on the White House to have another meeting. The White House has said that they're open to having a conversation about getting the fiscal house in order and budget cuts, but they feel that that is a separate matter from raising the debt limit. So whether or not the White House will kind of budge on that stance and sit down with the speaker after this plan passes remains to be seen. But certainly one thing we know is that time is of essence, because there's really just about, I'd say, maybe another 6 to 8 weeks before we get very close to that X date where we could hit the debt limit.
I tell you, Nikole, when we started talking about this last year, like December, summertime seemed so far away. I thought for sure they'd figure things out. Now it's right around the corner. Nikole, thank you very much.
You bet.